Welcome to another episode of Growth Hacker TV. I'm Bronson Taylor, and today I have Shrad Rao with us. Shrad, thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me, Bronson.
Absolutely. Now, Shrad, you are the CEO of WagePoint, which is the first multi-country payroll service for small and medium businesses. So let's start by talking about WagePoint. In your own words, what is WagePoint?
Thank you. Great introduction there. So Bronson, WagePoint is payroll software reimagined just for small businesses. So if you can imagine, payroll is very complex. Nobody really likes dealing with it. It's not a very sexy topic to talk about all day, though that just happens to be my job. And I love it. I mean, I think it's a very cool aspect that I get to understand so much about how taxes work and stuff like that. That's just a personal excitement thing. So WagePoint, what we do is we help small businesses have the best experience that they'll ever have when it comes to dealing with payroll.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so and that includes like things like direct deposits, all remittances to all the governments in the U.S. and Canada. Because it's so complex, we basically built a product that helps simplify to a point where a small business owner can use it and move on to doing other things very quickly.
Yeah, it seems like you guys knew from the very beginning you were going after small and medium businesses. So you kind of built the tool set with your customer already in mind. Is that fair?
It's totally fair.
Yeah,
yeah, it's absolutely fair.
Do you think the product actually is better because you had such a laser focus on who this is for? It wasn't just payroll for anybody. It was payroll for a certain size business.
Yeah, 100%. I think I could not imagine trying to build something for everybody and then scaling it down. I just cannot imagine we'd have the same success. That actually want to use our software, and we have to say, yeah, it's really not built for you. Thank you, but it's just not going to work for you. And that discipline is probably the biggest reason why it's been successful today.
Yeah.
It's very, very tempting to say yes. Rolls-Royce will say yes to you because Rolls-Royce is one of the people who called, and we were like, it just we want to be honest and transparent very early on. We don't want to waste anybody's time. So we knew how to get the messaging and how to talk to our audience from the very first day that we started the business.
How did you get those insights? How did you know how to talk to that audience? Was it customer development? Was it just your own experience in that space? What was it?
No, it was a lot of customer development. So the first thing we did is we put up a website that said payroll services. And it was totally ghetto rigged in the back where there's a person sitting and actually processing payroll for anybody that just happened to come our way. So we had about 400 small businesses that signed up while we were building our app to this payroll service thing. We only ended up converting a small portion of them because most of them were looking for payroll software. But the ones that ended up saying, okay, you know what, even if it's a service, we want to support you guys, those stuck around even after we ended up launching our product. But what was interesting is that we ended up talking to 400 businesses in the process. And what we realized is that we love that target market. We love small businesses. It's the people who are involved with small businesses are the most relatable people that you will ever meet. These are people who are like, you're a small business, right? Growth Hacker TV. These are people that you can hang out with, you can grab a coffee with, you can drink beer with, you can curse with, right? These are people who are generally not. They're there for a purpose. They have their life's mission that they're working on, and there's nothing more inspiring than being around those people. So it's not that we don't like to talk to people in large corporations. It's just that we prefer small businesses who we can just completely relate to.
Yeah, and other companies might prefer big business or might prefer these solo entrepreneurs, but you found the one that you love, which means you can build a product with passion for that one slice of the world, and it'll be done right. So that's awesome. So you guys launched in what year?
So we launched last summer.
Okay.
So it was July, I believe, of 2013 in Canada.
So you've been going a little over a year now, and you started in Canada, and now you're kind of expanding out to these other countries.
Yeah, so payroll software is very nuanced. It's very complex to build, and really there's no such thing as an MVP because you mess it up once and it's game over.
That's a good insight right there. Some things, it's not minimal viable product, it's a minimal sellable product.
Yes, absolutely. Like if we were not able to actually do direct deposits, all the remittances. Remittances are like basically the payments we make to all the agencies.
Oh yeah, I
If
know
we were
all
not
about
able to do
those.
that, you do or you don't.
I do.
Yeah. So we should talk after
Yeah,
this.
exactly.
Yeah. But the truth is that if you don't build a product that does those things, you don't have a payroll software.
Yeah,
So you know what I mean? It's like a toaster that can't toast.
yeah.
And so there are some very finite definitions of what payroll needs to be able to do. So you do live in a box from that perspective.
Hmm.
And finding out, so now you're talking about Canada. In Canada, all of our money goes to the central government or the federal government, and the federal government then distributes all the taxes to the appropriate agencies.
Hmm.
In the US, there's 13,000 tax codes,
Hmm.
and all the money goes to all the different agencies.
Hmm.
So you as a small business owner have to figure out how to negotiate that battle. And as a payroll software company, we have to say, well, our payroll software has to actually roll into each country almost
Ready to go.
yeah, one by one, right? So
Yeah.
you can't just be like, oh, now we're ready for the globe. We actually have to understand what the rules of a particular country are before we get there.
Yeah. So how much have you guys grown since launching in July? I mean, anything you can disclose, whatever
Yeah.
those numbers are.
No, we're pretty transparent for the most part. So we have over 500 customers,
Hmm.
all paying customers. We have a lot more users because we used to have a free plan,
Hmm.
but then we killed it. And I'll tell
Good.
you why if you're interested. But we actually found that people who were free users were always going to be free
Hmm.
users, and people who were willing to pay for it always were going to pay for it
Yeah.
right from the beginning. So we have over 500 customers. We've moved over $120 million of payroll to
Nice.
date. The 500 customers, we pay 4,000 employees on their behalf.
Hmm.
Um, so we're responsible for a fair chunk of change,
Hmm.
and it's a lot of responsibility for a small business,
Hmm.
for a small startup. Another reason why MVPs don't work for everything. So if we had an MVP that would handle a few hundred customers, we would have been in trouble really quickly.
Hmm.
So we had to figure out scale very early on.
Yeah. No, that's great.
'Cause moving that kind of money means you have to be able to track every last penny, and that's probably the most important thing that we're able to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what would you say is most responsible for your growth? To have 500 customers, in a little over a year. You said you put up that landing page, you had 400 kind of signups, and you converted some of those. I mean, where is this traffic coming from? Where are these customers coming from? Like, what's the
Yeah.
thing that actually makes this thing grow right now for you all?
So from payroll software, right?
Hmm.
Not sexy, like we
Not
talked
at all.
about. What? We have always taken a position as to how we want to be perceived. We've always done that. So we've never been like sort of lukewarm, in the middle, vanilla type company.
Mhm.
We've been either like kind of extreme. So when we started off, we had like, a robot on a dragon on the homepage, because we were like, look, we get that this stuff is boring. We'll never take it. We will always take it seriously, but we're not going to take ourselves seriously because, at the end of the day, small businesses are very much like consumers, right? And when you're using consumer apps, if it doesn't give you some sort of entertainment factor, you switch it off,
Mhm.
right? And so we approach small business software with the same kind of like, a little bit of quirk factor. We've pared it back a little bit just because we were testing to see how much we could get away
So
with.
you removed the dragon and left the robot.
Yeah, pretty much. What's funny though is that because of that hard line, in the way that we thought about our company,
Mhm.
two things have happened. One, we've attracted the kind of customer that again we can love and they can love us right back. So we've cultivated super fans from doing it that way. Because we picked a position, right? We're not in the middle. People either love us or they're a little confused by us, but they're never in the middle, right? So they love or hate, but never in the middle. And that's something that we were very passionate about from the first day that we got started.
Let me jump in on that because that's such an important point. People think that take Amazon reviews for instance, right? They think it's important to have like a high average rating on stars, but that's not what's important. It's important to have a bunch of 5 stars and a bunch of 1 stars because you want to polarize people. Because you know what? 3 stars don't buy. 3 stars don't subscribe. 3 stars don't stay customers year after year.
Exactly.
5 stars do, and 1 stars leave, and that's okay. And so
Yeah.
you want a product that polarizes a little bit, or you're not really making a statement enough to grow something.
You hit it right on the head. You said it a lot better than I did. But that's exactly what it is. It's that you have to talk to the customer inside yourself, right? So what kind of products would you buy and why do you buy them, right? And then you need to test to see how many other people like you are out there.
Yeah.
And you know that there's going to be a certain percentage of the population, and then it's a matter of reaching those types of people. So have we had customers that have been, completely not at all in sync with our culture? Yeah, but it's a very few percentage because most of them know exactly who they're dealing with and what they're getting.
And so it's interesting because I asked you a question about, how have you guys grown? And the answer is we love our customers. And so you didn't go to a traffic channel, you didn't go to a tactic. It's just you really feel like you resonate with your target audience. Do you feel like that is responsible for your growth, this resonation?
Absolutely. People need to know why to choose you, right? People need to know why they should give you their time and money and energies, right? And if you can give them a compelling reason, the reason is not features usually. It's that do business with me because we're going to actually be in sync.
Yeah.
You're never going to tell me something and I'm going to be confused by it because we speak the same language.
I like that.
That's typically, I think, why. So we're very inspired by companies like Less Accounting.
Yeah. We've used them before. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're inspired by people like that. Like Basecamp is a perfect example. They've always been very hardlined about how they behave and how they talk to their customer. And we think that this is the reason why companies grow.
Yeah, no, those are great insights. Now, you guys are expanding, into these different countries. You're becoming international. How important is that for your growth? Every time you add a country, is that just a tremendous upswing on your growth, or is it really kind of static for a long time and it doesn't do much right away? How important is your international expansion?
Okay, so it's as important as going from 1 million small businesses in our target market in Canada to 9.1 million.
So it just opens up the market big time.
It's 10 times the size, right? Now, the US obviously is the most pervasive market for software, right, in general. So it's the beacon, right? All startups are driven towards the US. If I could do a do-over, would I start in the US? Maybe. But I think we sort of like tested in our home country where some friendlies were there that we could sort of
which isn't bad. It's kind of your test market.
Yes, exactly. And so for us, because payroll software, like I said, you need to learn markets before you can get into them. It's not like building CRM, right? Like you open it up and the world can use it. So for us, opening up into additional markets is very important because it gives us the breadth. Having said that, though, I could pick theoretically New York, which has over 200,000 small businesses, and simply spend my life here. And be a really good regional player. So the small business market allows you to that kind of flexibility.
Yeah.
It all depends on the kind of company you are. There are some companies can do really well with like 500 customers that are all Fortune, 1,000 Fortune 1,000 customers or whatever. But for us, it's not just about the depth, it's also a little bit about the breadth.
Yeah, no, those are great. All right, so let's geek out a little bit about growth.
Sure.
So you're into some of the specific growth things. And I was reading your LinkedIn profile, and it says that you're obsessed with lowering acquisition costs through new media. So what does that mean, and how have you done that for WagePoint? How have you lowered your acquisition costs with new media?
Well, you know what? The truth is that we look for ways to we look for new things that marketers haven't exploited fully just yet. Right? Just like most marketers, we're always looking for the next thing that is going to be big. So if you take Product Hunt, for example, right? So we are usually early in a lot of these things. Sometimes we're just right, but many times we're early. Sometimes we're late. But really, when we talk about new media, when I first wrote that, I meant all the things related to digital marketing, right? So our job as marketers, and even though I'm the CEO of the company, I very much a marketer myself. We look for the end of the funnel type channels, right? Where can we find end of the funnel users? And so new marketing or new media is all of those things. It's SEM, SEO, all that stuff, but also looking for channels like that nobody's exploiting and we just want to try.
All right, so let me read between the lines a little bit. So you guys basically look at Product Hunt every day, make a list of the small businesses that you think would fit with WagePoint, and you reach out to them and see if you can get a conversation going, right?
Yeah, that's definitely, we have tried those things. And you know what? as a polar opposite, we've also just tried picking up the phone and doing cold calls and just see what happens.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's all about testing, as you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you had optimizely on just a little while ago, so
Yeah.
I know you believe in testing.
Absolutely.
And so for us, it's when we hear of something, can we take advantage of it? Can we exploit it in a way that is not opportunistic,
Mm-hmm.
but yet brings us closer to our customer base, our target base?
Yeah.
And just to clarify, people who are on Product Hunt are usually early adopters themselves,
Mm-hmm.
of different. So understanding the demographics of the new media are probably the most important thing. There's a lot of mom and pop shops that still use directories.
Yeah.
Or search and sell. Like we've even tried like really old school things like, or I guess we think it's old school, but like 411.ca,
Uh-huh.
just putting up a directory listing just to see what happens.
Yeah. No,
Right?
that's great.
So that's what I mean. Like the whole thing is saying, okay, well, how do we get us from a certain cost of acquisition to obviously lower, and the best one obviously is word of mouth.
Yeah.
Right. So we try to build. We're actually building in a referral engine in our software where every time you run a payroll and you make a referral, it discounts the base price.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, hopefully, you don't pay anything.
Yeah.
Which is great.
It also says on your LinkedIn profile that you're focused on making decisions based on metrics and analytics. So I want to dig into that a little bit. What tools are you guys using with WagePoint to track your metrics? Is there software you're using? Is it in-house stuff you've built? How do you track what's going on in the back end there?
It's a combination. So we do have some in-house stuff because it's payroll. So there are some metrics that are very specific to that.
Mm-hmm.
But we we use the same stuff that most people do. I think we use Google Analytics, KISS metrics. We use Intercom.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding the trigger points in the customer activation cycle. So once you get someone to convert, so we have conversion and activations, right? So conversions are when someone signs up. Activations are when they actually trigger the run the first payroll.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding that journey from a customer to conversion to activation is probably the single most important thing that I think all SaaS businesses have to do.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example of that. In our system, users have to add their FEIN number, their business number.
Mm-hmm.
When they add that, we know they're getting kind of warm.
Okay.
Then they add the first employee. Now they're starting to get really interesting.
Uh-huh.
Right? Then they add their bank account information, and it's pretty much game over. Then they're hot.
Yeah.
Right. So people would think about like the whole suspects to prospects to whatever funnel before they become before they even get converted or they show interest or whatever. But we look at it after. So we say, what are all the triggers within the system that actually tells us that they're getting hotter? So we start to focus more on. So now when they're added their bank information, now we're like, come on, close.
I gotcha.
Move it to the end.
So are you going? So now you kind of looked at the funnel after the fact and said, okay, the FEIN means they're a little bit warm, and the first employee means they're hotter. So you kind of found those trigger points.
Yes.
And then do you go to Intercom and say, okay, what can we send them after they put the FEIN in to push them along to add their first employee? And then you go back into Intercom. What can I add after they add their first employee to get their bank account? And so you basically like walk them along using stuff like Intercom, right?
Exactly. You hit it right on the head. That's exactly what we do. And the motivation is different to get to the next step. So it has to be custom to that step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that a lot. There's something about, that's what I'm learning a lot. We had the guys on, the name of it, I can't remember right now, but they do the whole thing where you sign up on the email list, and then if you refer friends, you get in quicker, that whole thing. But the way they do it is by using email to drag you along this path. And so every time you refer somebody, they send you a new email telling you, oh, now you only need this many more referrals and you can get this. And there's something about pinging them at the right time with the right information that can really lubricate that funnel and help people move through it with a lot less friction.
Absolutely. And the other thing too is there are cultural differences between countries that are very interesting to as we just launched in the US, right? So we're starting to notice this stuff. So Americans, when they get on the phone or if they send us emails, they're so well informed of the choices. It's crazy. Like they know things that we don't know about our competitors. You know what I mean? And so it becomes really important then to be able to speak very specifically the differences between us and other companies in our space. So my point is that some of these things are also cultural, and you have to bake those into your assumptions. In Canada, it's not that people don't know; they just trust a relationship really quickly.
Way more trusting.
Yeah, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
let's be friends. So a really simple example of trust is in Canada, we've have hundreds of customers, and we've had no instances of fraud at all. So nobody trying to pretend like they're a customer or whatever. In the US, we hit our 10 customer mark, and we immediately had a fraud alert.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just difference in
Yeah,
culture that
Canadians
you
are
have
so
to
much
take all.
nicer. We all know that. We all know they're too nice.
Yeah, but also, less aggressive from. I mean, there's pros and cons, right? So my point is that you have to bake all those things into your intercom message, right? You have to say, this guy's from Canada. This is what I think he values.
Ah.
So it's not just about like trying to do one size fits all. You have to add some filters that actually make sense for those people.
Yeah, totally. I like that. Now, what metric has surprised you? As you build WagePoint, is there any metric that really matters that you didn't know to even track initially, or anything like that?
Yeah. So so one thing that came up was we we used to think that when people sign up, they'll activate like really quick because who's going to look for payroll software unless you absolutely need it, right? Who does it for fun? Nobody. Maybe me, but but nobody else.
Yeah.
And what we found out was that just by implementing KISS metrics, because the cohort analysis actually told us that our activation rates are ridiculously good for SaaS metrics in general. Like I think it's trended at 50%. Which is crazy. So that was last year, but as our numbers have grown, of course, that has started to decline, sadly. But it's not at the 3 or 4 standards kind of thing. It's still in the tens or 25% or whatever, which is still very excellent. But what happened is the only way we discovered that is because we actually did cohort analysis, and we saw those people who were signing up in July were only activating actually in November. Because what happened is that people would say, you know what, this payroll thing is going to be really complex. I should really get to it. Just let me get set up, figure it out. And then, so we had customers that would call us, they would say, oh yeah, I don't need to do this until next month, but I thought this was going to be a lot more complex. But we're pretty much done here. And this would be like, 15 minutes after they signed up. So those are the types of things I think that just the education about how people end up trending in terms of how they convert versus activation. I think that's probably one of the biggest, most surprising things we've seen.
Yeah, it's so interesting. This entire interview so far, everything is so much about the customer. It's about, how to reach that market. It's about how to build a product for them. It's about understanding the country they're from. It's about communicating in ways that they can understand and do things. I mean, it seems like it's hard to fail if you're that obsessed with the customer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So a really good example is that 85% of our support tickets are closed within an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, and so we're like literally will wake up to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Because payroll is mission critical, right?
Absolutely.
I can't say, we'll take care of this tomorrow. I envy those businesses. Because I'm
That'd be nice, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But in our case, it's just not possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, customer, it's like when you go to somebody's like we've been to people's soup shops and they've been running payroll just when we walked in there. It's like a high, it feels so good. And so you can tell I like the people that we do business with. So obviously I'm going to try to do as much as I can for them.
Yeah. No, that's great. Now, you also have an interest in really just product, UI, UX, branding, all those things.
Yeah.
How important are those things to growth? Because so far we've talked about funnels, we've talked about understanding your customer, we talked about, all those kind of, ways to get signups. How important is the other softer stuff, the UI, the UX, the branding? How does that fit into the growth story for you guys?
It's huge. I mean, it's the only thing the customer sees, right? It goes back to that. Like, they don't care how you're doing it. They just want it done. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Bad phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they don't really care about anything outside of the UX and UI. It's only tech people that really think that there's something magic happening that everyone should know about behind the scenes. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Especially a customer. They just want to know that you are the people who are going to quarterback this payroll thing right to the end zone. That's all they need to know.
It reminds me of like the 37 Signals, the way they approach product. They say you design it first and then you engineer it. But the reason is because the design is the only thing the customer sees.
Yeah.
They don't see the engineering. So you need to get the design right. and then let the engineers build that design, and it just makes a lot more sense that way.
Yeah, so we've never built a product that we didn't completely spec out first. Now, I'm not saying that we spec'd out like what the account management feature was going to look like, but all the main stuff, we've never built a product that we haven't spec'd out all day. It's such a waste of time to just keep re-engineering something. And so, yeah, I mean, what's interesting, and I don't know if you find this interesting, but we've never tried to be the sexiest tech product out there because our user base. We've had 60-year-old grandmothers that own a chocolate shop, and so what we don't want to do is use so much Bootstrap or Angular or whatever that these guys are like, wow, this looks amazing, but it's not for me. It's for these young cool people who know what technology is all about, but it's not for me.
Yeah.
So we have said really early on, let's make it pretty, absolutely. Let's make it beautiful as much as we can, but let's make it functional first, especially from the experience standpoint.
Yeah. Now,
so that's, yeah.
Yeah, when I was looking on your homepage, just something else I wanted to bring up. I noticed that the WagePoint homepage is very driven by copywriting. Was that intentional? And walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, it is. So payroll has a lot of educational components to it, right? So you need to really know what you're going to get when you buy this product. With most products, you see a lot of feature sets, right? But when you're doing a direct deposit, it's not necessarily a feature set, right? It's something that you must have. A feature set, a lot of them are nice to have, though I say that with fully understanding that there are some features that are mandatory. But with payroll, people need to understand it before they purchase it. So copywriting, what we found is that our conversions actually skyrocketed when we started putting more copy in there. And people think that by making something pretty looking or whatever, nice looking, but with pretty designs, that's good, right? And to be very frank with you, I'm so tired of like the picture, the single parallax picture with the coffee shop, coffee shop owner of it. We just wanted to be different. We wanted to be able to be very conversion focused and say, this is what you're going to get. This is how you sign up for it. Because believe it or not, people who are not in tech all the time still ask us, how do I sign up for this? Even though they see sign up everywhere, it's still not enough.
Well, I like one of the things you did with the sign up, which is kind of a clever little thing. There's the sign up on the right of the site that you scroll past, but as soon as you scroll past it, another sign up box just like it drops in from the top of the site, and it's static. It stays there. It's persistent. And so kind of wherever you're at scrolling on the page, you're really close to a sign-up box.
It's just a different way that we have approached it. And people still ask us, how do we sign up?
You still can't make it easy enough.
That's the thing. So my point is that, all these, and again, it's not that we just want to be different, but we emphasize the journey before we emphasize the design.
And so emphasize the journey before we emphasize the design.
Yeah, so I mean, for us, copywriting has always been effective. It conveys not only what we do, but also how we do it. We're always a little cheeky, and that tends to, like, there are some people who love it. Like, people are like, I love you guys because you're so cheeky. And that's the same thing if you ask, I'm sure if you ask Alan Branch from Last Accounting, who you should totally have on the program because he's awesome.
Yeah, we should.
He's the kind of guy that, he believes this stuff and it's actually worked for him.
Yeah, this has been awesome, Shrad. I mean, we've learned so much just about how to really think about the customer and so much else besides that. I have two last questions, and then we'll close this out. First, what's in the future for growing WagePoint? What's on the roadmap? What are you going to try next to get the numbers up?
You mean other than Bitcoin?
Yeah, other than that. Well, maybe that's it. I mean, you guys recently, started paying employees in Bitcoin if people choose to. Is it stuff like that you're going to try? Just keep being innovative? Yeah.
So, I mean, like, when's the last time someone has actually innovated in how you get paid?
Never.
It's always in cash, right? And it's always in, and some people maybe want it in Bitcoin. Maybe they want it in, I don't know, maybe they want it in gold. I don't know, right?
It'd be fun, right? I mean, if nothing else.
And so the Bitcoin thing was just sort of like keep a small piece aside, with your pay and convert into Bitcoin. But it turned out, and this was another one of those metrics that surprised us, that 80% of the people that turned on that feature took 100% of their net pay in Bitcoin.
That's crazy.
I know. So this Bitcoin feature was totally a part of a hackathon, an internal hackathon that we did because we were kind of looking for something fun to do, and it was only 20 hours that we put to the project, so it wasn't like a huge departure from our roadmap or whatever. And we said, well, why don't we pick something that's really fun to get paid with, or something that's interesting? And we all like Bitcoin, at varying degrees. So we did it purely just for as a side project, just for a little bit of fun and to work on something we get excited about, and stop talking about payroll for 5 minutes. And so we processed our first customer, our first employee took $2,000 in Bitcoin in January, and as of last month, it was 75,000.
Wow, that's great. All right,
crazy.
so last question, and this is a question I ask to everybody, to end the show. What's the best advice you have for any startup that's trying to grow?
The best advice I could have is that you got to find your own voice, and you have to have personality. Don't be middle of the road. It is not worth it. You're simply left a corporate job where people always try to make you middle of the road, and create another company that was middle of the road. Just be awesome at something, even if your ideas, if you're the only one who loves your ideas, I guarantee you that when you actually put yourself out there and get a little vulnerable, you're going to find other people that feel the same way about it.
Well,
that would be. I think that people think about advice usually for this kind of stuff, and they tell you, focus on better hacks, focus on better marketing. But I'm just saying, like, be really the kind of person you want to be, and make sure your company represents and reflects that. Because you'll always have the most amount of success doing that.
Yeah, well, Shrad, that is perfect advice to end on. So thank you again for coming on Growth Hacker TV.
Yeah, thank you very much, man. It was totally a blast, and I'm going to sign up, and if you're watching, you should too.
That's right. Thank you.